Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast. The podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and today I want to talk about whole foods and natural sugars versus added sugars, as well as the new US dietary guidelines that just came out, including that updated nutrition pyramid that you may have seen. So we'll get to all that in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. All right, so I'm recording this episode in January 2026, and you may have seen that the new US dietary guidelines just came out. And whether or not you're in the US, I personally live in Canada, overall, I'm happy to see lots of real whole foods on there because that's what I talk about in this podcast too. But what I don't love is when food gets politicized or overcomplicated, because I think we have enough complex things to deal with in our lives without adding food to the mix. And I really do believe that eating real food shouldn't feel like you're taking some kind of political or moral stance. It should be about how you feel in your body. And as I read through the comments on social media after the new guidelines came out, I thought I might clear up a little bit of confusion about what exactly whole foods are and the difference between natural sugars and added sugars. Because I know how confusing this can get, and if you hear people, including myself, saying cut sugar, it may make you fear fruit or dairy or anything sweet at all. And I've watched well-meaning advice, including mine, turn into feelings of restriction or stress or food noise, which is the opposite of what I personally am trying to do here. So I want to talk about how I see what whole foods are, as well as which foods contain added sugars and which foods contain natural sugars. And I want to add a sort of disclaimer that I'm not here to give any kind of recommendation or to tell you what to eat or what not to eat. My goal here, especially as a teacher, but also as someone who's been living sugar-free and craving-free for over 10 years, my goal here is to give you your personal power back so that you can decide how you want to eat and how you want to live your life. So after over 10 years of eating what I consider to be whole foods, at least 99% of the time, what I mean by whole foods is foods that are close to their natural state. So yes, they might be washed or chopped or cooked or frozen or dried, but they're not fundamentally changed and they don't have sugar or anything else added to them. So I'm talking about proteins such as meat, fish, seafood, eggs, and plant-based proteins like beans and pulses. I'm talking about fruits and vegetables. And I'm talking about fats such as olive oil or butter. And for me personally, and you may not agree, which is fine, I don't include grains, even whole grains, in my diet because I just don't digest them well. And also because the vast majority of products on the supermarket shelves are not actually made with whole grains anymore because the grains have been ground up into flour. So I'm not sure I would put grains in the category of whole foods unless they really are whole. Now, I realize that unless you live on your own farm and are totally self-sufficient, which I'm definitely not, then the food that you buy at the grocery store has been minimally processed. For example, milk is pasteurized, or cream is churned to make butter, or milk can be skimmed to change its fat content. Those are just a few examples, but for example, I often buy frozen fruit because in Canada, the growing season is pretty short and we don't have all types of fruit all year round. Same for vegetables. I often buy mine frozen. Or take tomatoes, for example. They can be cooked or canned, but if they have no sugar added, then this is what I consider to be whole foods that are minimally processed. And I don't eat whole foods out of some moral superiority or because I'm a millionaire. I eat them because they taste good and because they make me feel good. They give me energy, they fill me up, they give me confidence and peace around food because they don't cause cravings. I never run out of different combinations and meal ideas. And actually, because they fill me up, I end up saving money because I end up eating less often. I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. So just before the break, I was talking about what I consider to be whole foods. And now I want to go into the difference between naturally occurring sugars and added sugars, because this is where a lot of confusion happens. So basically, natural sugars are sugars that occur naturally in whole foods, in foods such as fruit, that naturally contains fructose. Natural sugars can also be found in vegetables, especially starchy vegetables, and in dairy in the form of lactose. But the thing with whole foods is that they also contain a bunch of other good things like fiber, water, vitamins, and minerals. And so your body processes whole foods much more slowly than if you were consuming processed forms of these same foods. For example, your body will process or metabolize a piece of whole fruit much more slowly than fruit juice or some kind of fruit-flavored drink. And it's this slow absorption that gives you more nutrition and that keeps you full for longer. Now, I know I shouldn't really do this, but I can't help myself. I've been reading hundreds of comments about the new nutritional guidelines in the US, and some people say that they're revolutionary, and other people, especially nutritionists and dietitians, say that this is what they've been saying for years. Eat more real whole foods. And whatever the healthy plate or the pyramid or whatever shape that comes out that gives guidelines for healthy eating, it doesn't really matter if we just ignore them. But in my experience, I do find that if we say something explicitly, like for example, to avoid added sugars, then people are far more likely to listen. And the new guidelines do explicitly recommend that we keep away from added sugars. And let me give you some examples of these. Table sugar, brown sugar, different types of syrups, high fructose corn syrup, and other added sugars that may appear on ingredient labels under all kinds of different names, such as agave syrup, rice syrup, fructose, glucose, dextrose, sucrose, maltose, anything that ends in O's, as well as cane sugar, beet sugar, turbinado sugar, fruit juice concentrate, and also aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, xylitol, and acesulfame K. So you may have heard in that list the O's words like glucose and fructose, and I just wanted to say that there is a big difference between the naturally occurring glucose and fructose that comes packaged with fiber and water and micronutrients in whole fruits and vegetables, for example, compared to the added and isolated forms of glucose and fructose that contain no fiber, no water, in fact, no nutritional value at all. So although on a molecular level, glucose and fructose may be the same, physiologically, the body responds very differently to glucose and fructose in real whole foods compared to glucose and fructose as additives on a list of ingredients. And these types of added sugars are found in products such as soft drinks and sweetened yogurts and sauces and dressings, as well as baked goods and snack foods. So the key thing to remember is that your body reacts very differently to sugar that occurs naturally in a whole food than it does to processed sugar that's added to food products. Because added sugars, or free sugars as they're called, are absorbed super fast in the body, and they can cause blood sugar spikes and cravings that make you reach for more of these types of foods. Plus, they don't give you any nutrition whatsoever. So I wouldn't freak out too much about naturally occurring sugars, because the real problem is hiding in ultra-processed foods that contain added sugars. And I just wanted to add a quick word about the US dietary guidelines that just came out in January 2026, because they are meant to guide public health, not micromanage the diet of every individual. So they're used for school lunches and hospitals and nutrition education and food labeling standards. And these new recommendations focus on whole, nutrient-dense foods. And instead of limiting added sugars to under 10% of calories, the new recommendation, as far as I understand it, recommends no added sugars whatsoever. Now, I don't want to sound cynical, but I'm not holding my breath to see whether this makes much of a difference in, for example, food that's served in hospitals or schools. I mean, let's be real. We've seen it happen before. It's one thing for recommendations to come out, whether it's from the government, a nutritionist or dietitian, or humble old me. And it's quite another for people to actually follow the recommendations, or, on the flip side, question them. But whether or not you agree with the recommendations, the bottom line is that real whole foods that don't have added sugars and that aren't ultra-processed by the food industry are far more likely to help you feel healthier, more energetic, and fuller without causing cravings and snack attacks. And I realize that real whole foods are not always affordable and readily available for all sectors of society. That in itself is a systemic problem that goes beyond the scope of my podcast. But what I can tell you from personal experience is that eating real whole foods at the end of the day isn't actually more expensive than eating fast foods or takeout or highly processed food products. And it definitely saves time and money on meds, doctor's appointments, and anything else that's related to poorer health. But whether you have the government or nutritionists or dietitians or a podcast like this one, or even artificial intelligence recommending or suggesting what to eat, what they can't do is give you personalized guidance and support and accountability, which is exactly why I created the Freedom from Cravings Formula program. Because I created this program specifically to help you go deeper into your relationship with food, especially sugar, and also into your relationship with yourself, so that you can finally get guidance and support to stop emotional eating, break free from sugar cravings, slim down, and feel more in control around food. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you stop emotional eating, break free from cravings, and feel more in control around food, so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly, and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life when you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can talk directly to me on a free clarity call at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on Program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak to you soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.